of the pastors up here, obviously, as Beth pointed out, the short one. But that's okay, because there's a lot of short guys in the Bible that are pretty awesome. Not that I relate with any of those guys, just on stature purely, but anyway, I'm glad you guys are here today. We are excited. The title of the message today is Relationship Factor. There was a guy in YWAM named Dean Sherman who stated that he thought that 90 to 99% of the problems in the world are relationship problems. And if you look at your circle inside your life and you see what problems and irritations and issues you have, are they relational? And it comes down to the question, and we're going to look at Ephesians today, and the first 3 chapters of Ephesians is about the vertical side. The last 3 are about the horizontal side of the interaction with the people. So within this book that Paul wrote, this is one book that didn't deal with heresy or other problems, but it came in to talk about who God is, who Jesus Christ is, who the Holy Spirit is, and bring us to that place of understanding. And in today's world, there is a hodgepodge of belief. There is so much stuff out there that whatever you want to believe, you can figure out if you don't, you can find somebody to align with you, and it's a really, really scary time. So as you go back to the Word and you see what he states within the first section of Ephesians, it starts to break out as to what this is all about. So the relation factor has 2 issues that I want to hit on today. That's our relationship with God and our relationship with others. And there is nothing else, because we live in a world where you have to be relational. Unless you live somewhere all by yourself and never interface, even the Uber driver that drops your food off at the DoorDash, you never see, and you live inside your own place, it's impossible to do. You're going to have some interface with somebody. So you have an opportunity for conflict. You have an opportunity for relational issues. And I think the challenge that comes to us is, do we really recognize who Jesus Christ has called us to be? Do we really recognize what God has called his body to be? And do we really embrace the fact of the call, of the challenge, of what that is? Because it's sacrifice. The I Surrender song hit it to the nail, and then followed by You're Worthy of It All. Solely, that's why we find ourselves on our knees. Solely, that's why we find ourselves on our face. Because we get the glimpse of the revelation of, like Isaiah saw, I am a man of unclean lips. How many of us still get that revelation that I am unworthy to stand in this place, but then we stand to the side because of Jesus that makes us worthy, but then we forget that balance, and we go on and we get offended. Now we've missed it. But the beauty of the gift of repentance, we bring it back. So, enough of me rambling. Let's get into Paul. So the book of Ephesians here. Ephesians reminds us of our ultimate hope. Ephesians 1:3. This is going to be scripture thick, so I hope you're hungry. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in heavenly places. Just as he chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world to be holy and blameless before him, he destined us for adoption for his children through Jesus Christ according to his good pleasure and his will, to the redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of his trespasses according to the riches of his grace that he lavished on us. With all wisdom and insight, he has made known to us the mystery of his will, according to his good pleasure that he set forth in Christ, as the plan for fullness of time to gather up all things in him, things in heaven and things in earth. In Christ we have also obtained an inheritance, having been destined according to the purpose of him who accomplishes all things according to his counsel and will, so that we who were first to set our hope on Christ might live for the praise of his glory. In him you also, when you had heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, and had believed in him, were marked with the seal by the promised Holy Spirit. This is the pledge of our inheritance towards redemption as God's own people to the praise of his glory. Now, if that doesn't set you in a place of being part, being something, being spoken over, there are several words that pop up. Chosen, yours says chose, destined, children, redemption, inheritance, and his own people. So those labels today you don't hear a lot of, as far as people saying, hey, we chose you for this job. Hey, you are redeemed into the whatever. You can't say that because Jesus is the only one that brings that. But as those things come into us as beings, as believers, they should empower us with a confidence. Have you ever met somebody who's really good at what they do? They don't have any questions. There's no air about them. They just do it really well, and they don't falter. They stand in a place, and they're able to do what's needed to be done. They have confidence. You as believers, if you hail the name of Jesus Christ, should have that confidence to walk in this world. Not an arrogant one, because Jesus knows it's saddled with humility, but a confidence to be able to say to somebody, do you need help? Do you need prayer? Can I share with you about my Jesus? You should have that confidence. Why? Because you're chosen. Why? Because you're destined. Why? Because you have an inheritance from the Lord coming into you. Why? Because he's called you. And the whole kingdom is set up on us being in this place of knowing who we are, that we can go out, like the Time to Revive guys, and say, hey, could I pray for you? But I think a lot of us, we get caught up in our own selves, our busyness, our craziness, maybe we feel defeated, and we don't. I was talking with someone this week about some of the other belief systems. Andy mentioned a Hindu faith, and there's a festival of lights called Dawi going on right now, of which is a huge Hindu festival. And then in our discussion, we were hitting back and forth of even the pseudo-Christian beliefs, like, I won't name some of them, but anyway, the ones that run alongside that look Christian but they're not, are so vigilant in what they do. And the other belief systems, like the Muslims and the Hindus and stuff, they're so hardcore. And then as we were talking, we kind of realized that maybe as believers, we need a little kick from the Lord to realize that we have the truth. We have the cure for the problem, no matter what that problem is. But yet, for some reason, we don't share it. For some reason, we allow conflict to divide. For some reason, we judge. This is what Paul hits on here, because the Jews and the Greeks were at odds. There was different mindsets as far as how they were supposed to be, as far as their belief goes. And he's hitting on this part of, listen, all of us, within those first 12 chapters or verses I just read, are the same. We're chosen. We're redeemed by his blood. We've been given an inheritance of the kingdom. We're redeemed. We're destined. We're children. How many of you just love to know that your parents called you, this is my child. This is my son who I'm pleased. This is my daughter who I'm pleased. There's a pride that comes forth. And all of us that are parents can say, yeah, absolutely, those are my kids. And you're proud of that fact. Now think of that about you and God going, yes, you are my kids. And be proud of that. These words of hope that Paul reminds us of can only come through a relationship with Jesus Christ. In John 3:16, we all know, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe on him would not perish but have eternal life. There's the promise, there's the inheritance, there's the part of coming into the kingdom. But yet we forget that we were bought with a price, that we're not our own. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation has come, the old is gone, the new is here. So Paul's reiterating this stuff to these guys in Ephesus and saying, you guys are all this. Boom, you're there. You get the t-shirt, you get the prize, you win. Now, can you walk it out? Can you start to love one another? Can you start to be the one who's called you to be? Because in the place that you sit right now, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Jesus said to his disciples, I want you to love others as I've loved you. And in that, I want you to also know that I'm no longer going to call you not my servants, because slaves are servants, but you know the business of the Father, and I'm going to call you my friends. This is the King of Kings stating this, saying, I'm going to call you my friends. And we all know what friends mean. We have levels of friendship. We have close friends. We have friends, and then we have friends. And then we have acquaintances. And then we have people that we've interfaced with briefly. And we all know that when somebody knows somebody of popularity, we like to say, oh, they're my friend. But the reality of it is, Jesus calls all of us his friend. And he's the greatest of the greatest, the King of Kings, that there is no other thing above. Right? So we should walk out of here for no other reason. We shut this thing right down right now and walk out of here and go, yeah, I'm a friend of Jesus. You got any friends? I sure do. How come I never see you with anybody? Because my Jesus is my friend. Maybe I don't shower. That's the reality we live in. But we forget. We deal with, in our nation today, depression is so huge. Anxiety is so huge. But Jesus is there saying, hey, I'm your friend. You're my friend. I call you my friend. I don't call you slaves. I don't call you servants. I call you my friends. The command to put off our old self is a reminder to believers that the sinful nature doesn't simply disappear at conversion. So we get saved, and we all know that the journey comes forward, and we've all heard the stories of the guy that gets saved, and he's got kind of a really foul mouth, and he comes into a prayer meeting, and he's dropping the bombs, and you're like, oh, my word, somebody needs to tell that guy to stop that. But you know what? The bottom line is God starts to change from the inside out, and the old man starts to change, and then as he moves forward, his verbal imperatives change, and he doesn't say these things anymore. But yet in all of our lives, maybe it's not as extreme in that, but we take back who the old man is. The old man starts to rise up. I don't think I need to go do that. Nah, guy stopped on the side of the road, he's flagging me down. I don't need to stop. I was there once. It's raining. Or maybe your wife says, hey, can you do this? And you say, you kidding me? The game's on. I can't get up and do that right now. Selfish. That's the old man. Do you see anywhere in the Bible where it says the fruit of the Spirit is selfishness, anger, arrogance, my way? No. It's absolutely the opposite. But you know what that is, don't you? It's the old man rising up. And so we continually, on a regular basis in Luke, take up our cross and deny ourselves. Because the reality of it is we all live with this little thing over our shoulder. We're redeemed. We're chosen. The blood is separated and a new creation has come forth in Corinthians 5:17. But we still deal with the old man. And it's only by crucifying your flesh. It's only by being in that place of recognizing that, God, you chose me. You redeemed me. I no longer have to succumb to this. So then you go to your wife after she asked you that and you rudely said, no, the game's on. I'm sorry. I should have just hit the DVR pause. What was I thinking? Selfish. Back when I grew up, we didn't have remotes, let alone a pause. And then when VCRs came in, all you had was a flashing light. You could never figure out how to make it work except play. So then you want to tape something. I'm speaking on my parents' side. I could figure it out, how it is, because I'm younger than they are. So, but look at the track of which we get into, and then the modern comforts come and the conveniences come, and it just comes into the place of where we don't honor what God has really called us to do. And we're going to get into this in a minute in Ephesians 5:21. It is the marital relationship. It is very interesting. 4:17 says, now in this I affirm and insist, the Lord, you must no longer live as Gentiles in the futility of your minds. They're darkened in the understanding, alienated from the life of God because of their ignorance and their hardness of heart. They've lost all sensitivity to and have abandoned themselves to licentiousness, greedy to practice every kind of impurity. That is not the way you learned Christ. For surely you have heard about him and were taught in him as truth in Jesus. You were taught to put away the former life, your old self, corrupt and deluded by its lust, and be renewed by the spirit of your minds, to clothe yourselves in the new self, created according to the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. This just affirmed everything I said. To put away those things that used to be, that would steal away from who God has called us to be. You can call that the reckoned old man as he rises up, that temper. I had a situation that I'm not too proud of not too long ago. My wife and I were walking out of a store, one of those stores where you get to pay to go shop. It's really a neat store. It's kind of a fun store because there's really everything huge bulk stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm rolling out, and they've got those people that check your receipt on the way out to make sure that everything on your cart you did buy. And it still blows my mind that at one store, they don't go down the whole receipt. And besides, they've got speed readers at the door. Have you ever seen those guys? All right, you're good to go. I'm like, wow, that is crazy. Did you know I had it? Yeah, I saw it. Okay. Unbelievable. So we're in line, we're trying to get out, and everything's tense at the door because they make it like a trough. Everybody funnels in, and there's one guy there. Hey, what's going on? And they're busy talking to somebody, and so I push my cart up there, and there's another lady over here, so I quick squeal around over here, and she's talking to another guy, and I'm not sure what they're talking about, but the manager's talking there, and the manager's talking to the guy, and she's kind of just standing there. So I push up a little bit, and the manager looks over and he goes, just a minute, she'll be right with you. And so, Captain Impatient, I look up and go, and then he looks back at me. Gina goes, oh. Right about then, The lady takes my receipt. I walk out, stewing still. She goes, my Jada looks at me, she goes, why? What was wrong? You looked at that guy like you were ready to just go at it. And I said, I'm not quite sure. I think it's his fault. He got in my way. Bottom line was the old man rose up and he was with a vengeance. He had taken steroids and he was ready to rock that place. That's where we walked out, and I said to her, I said, I was wrong. I'm sorry you had to see it. I mean, there was no words exchanged with intensity or hostility, but my eyes said it. I was mad. And the reason I was mad is because I was inconvenienced. I was impatient. We would have got out 15 seconds later if I'd have just smiled. Hey, how's it going? Yeah. You'd have thought I was a weirdo smiling, but at the same time, I wouldn't have gotten dagger eyes back, right? So anyway, the old self rises, and I don't mean it's sinful. Well, that is pretty sinful being angry like that, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't come back to where we slip off and we're totally confused, but it's the little things that start to blow our witness. How would it have been if I dagger-eyed that guy, and then I looked at him and I said, oh, by the way, I'd like to invite you to church at Bayshore where I'm one of the pastors. Just thought I'd tell you that. Jesus loves you. See ya. Run his toe over with my cart, and on my way out I go. It wouldn't work. But it would work if I was a nice guy, patient, letting the Spirit of the Lord be seen. And that's really the reality where we live. Because nobody plans to get up and be a real egghead. It just happens. And it happens because we make a choice. And the choice comes into the place of where, for me, it's inconvenience or frustrated or whatever. We had nowhere to go. It was just, I was inconvenienced because I thought you should look at my receipt now. So selfish, so lame. So do we recognize the old self? That's the question. Do we recognize the old self? And most of the time it manifests in our homes. Maybe with your kids or your grandkids or whatever, your wife or your whomever you're living with. Because those circles are the places that are close enough to us, that are tight enough to us to where we let our guard down. And the enemy knows to start to slip in there. And maybe you can blame it on, I didn't sleep well last night, so that's why I'm popping off. Whatever the case is, it doesn't excuse the fact that we're called to set aside those things. We're to be renewed in our minds, to clothe ourselves with a new self created according to the likeness of God in true righteousness. And it's opening our eyes to truly see what it is. So Ephesians 5:15 says, look carefully how you walk. Not as unwise, but wise, making the best of time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks always for everything to God the Father, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. The greatest ultimate submission shown to us was, you would probably say, Jesus on the cross, which is true. But there was a bigger submission before that. The choice that was given as he sweat drops of blood in the garden. And he stated in his statement, Father, let this cup pass. If there's any other way, but if this is not, then let your will be done. And he drank the cup. Now, if this isn't a model of submission, I don't know what is. And it's not that he showed weak. It's not that he showed anything except ultimate respect to his Father, to the call that was placed on him. And all of us, as it says here, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. So whether you like the guy sitting next to you, or the lady sitting next to you, or in the store, it's not a matter of choice. It's a matter of we're called to respectfully submit out of reverence and respect for Christ. So what does that mean? You never get out of the checkout line because you're always standing in your cart going, oh no, after you. Oh no, after you. Oh no, after you. Oh no, after you. Text comes in, Dave, where are you? Oh no, after you. Oh, I'm just submitting at the grocery store. I'll probably never get out of here. Oh, no. But it's the balance part of being humble. When somebody blows you up negatively, how do you respond? Most of us, something riles up inside. But at that moment is where we have to honor those. So now let's go into the church body. Let's go into what Jesus is talking about as the church body. That's you. That's me. So do we willfully respect and submit to one another? Do we honor one another? Do we have divisions of which we push each other aside? I can rattle off a whole bunch of things that caused a lot of division, but there's no point because you're already there. So in your mind, on the areas where you struggle and you challenge and you're beating against the wall, do you see the part where God's saying to you, maybe you should open your hand? Maybe with the reverence of Christ we should submit. We should, out of respect. Because there is no issue greater than salvation. There is no issue greater than a witness to this world. So if we lose our witness because we're divided on a line of whether we do or we don't with something, that blows our witness. Can we humbly respect somebody else's choice and decision without having to be that guy that rises up and say you're wrong? Now, this is the part where I would challenge this, and even in the right way with respect, is when somebody's sinning and we step in and we're in a discussion and they're living in sin and we start to lay out to them and they go, you get out of my face and stop judging me. At that juncture, what do? You lovingly say, okay, but I love you and I want you to know that I'm here. Because we are not the Holy Spirit, but we're called to be in a place of submission. And you think in submission, oh, that's weak, that's failed. It's actually not. It's actually, it literally means ordering yourself under. It's not forced on you. It's about willingly yielding to another person within a rightly ordered relationship. And normally the ordered relationship in question involves some kind of authority. So if we go back to 21 where it says submit to one another out of reverence for Christ, we love each other. So now you may have the question of how come churches fight? Not our church, of course, but other churches. You hear all along the way, one church bashes another church and blah, blah, blah. It shouldn't be. There should be one church, one head. That's Jesus. And if they see this theologically a little different, and they see this part a little different, but none of it goes back to the basic tenets of faith of what salvation is. That's Jesus Christ as the Son of God who died and rose again. And we believe that in our hearts, so therefore we're saved. If it doesn't change that little part, it doesn't matter. Because honestly, if you think that you're a pre-tribber or a mid-tribber or a post-tribber, nobody cares. Because when the end comes, you'll know what you are. Because if I'm gone and you're looking for me and you're thinking you're a mid-tribber, bye-bye. Because the reality is not even the Son knows the hour that he comes back. And when the trumpet blows, all of us are going to look, and those that are true in Christ are gone. So I personally hope it's pre-trib. I don't want to go through that. I'd rather be yanked out and gone going, yeah, giddy up, Jesus. What's that horse run on? Man, alive, I tell you what. But those are issues that people fight. And if it doesn't come back to salvation, like he points out here, we should be the witness. So, 22 through the next few verses in 33, we all know it's husband and wives. So let's shift the gear here, and here we go. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and himself as Savior. Its Savior. Now, the church submits to Christ, so also wives submit to everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, cleansed her by the washing of the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. Because we are members of this body and we become one flesh, the mystery is profound, and I am saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So again to this part of submission. It's not a lording over. It's not a thus saith Dave. It's a part of mutually respecting one another. And she respects, as we just said here where it talked in 21, submitting to one another out of the reverence of Christ. She submits out of the reverence of Christ. He is able to be the head, not the authoritative head, but the fount head. Think of a river. Where does that river start? That's the source. Jesus is the source for the church. So as this comes out, I pulled this little quote Marriage is meant to be a living drama of how Christ and the church relate to others. So if we say that Jesus is the head, the church is the bride, and yet we're to model it within our relationship, and we get all hung up on the part of, wives, submit to your husband. Well, the bottom line reality is we're all supposed to submit to one another. And in this particular structure here, it's the husband laying his life down for the wife. Yeah, that's our task, is to be dead, is to be sacrificial. And this makes a harmonious relationship. We have a wedding today we're going to do, and we're so excited. Andy can hardly sit in his seat right now because we get to stand in this place that God has created to be a witness, for a drama to play out to the world, that somebody looks at their relationship and they say, how do you guys get along so well? How do you respect your husband so great? How do you love your wife so much? Because Jesus is my first and foremost. Jesus has shown me to take up my cross and deny myself and to honor my wife. And then it goes on in the next chapters that children obey your parents, slaves obey your masters. There is a structure, and it all comes out of respect. It all comes out of serving. But it gets skewed because our old man rises up and says, no, I'm in charge. This is my house. Wife, you're supposed to submit. And then she fires back and goes, as you do unto the Lord, as you do unto the church. And you, what? What are you talking about? You're supposed to die. So I'm supposed to respect you when you're dead. Oh, if you think of it in that light, it's true. Because when you come into a marital relationship, I wasn't a lieutenant and she was a private. We were co-equals. You look back to where it started. We all know the song that the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone and it goes on down. Well, none of those places did the woman come out of. She came out of the side. She came out of a rib. She came out to be a helpmate. They came out to work together. Yes, there's a structure there. As a man, you're supposed to be the protector. You're supposed to be the head. You're supposed to be the covering as Jesus is for the church. But it's not the part to where it's the lording over. We can never redeem our wife. Only Jesus can. We can give them the word to help bring them out to be that woman of who it is. Have you ever thought about Proverbs 31 of why that woman was so successful? Because her husband spoke highly of her. She respected him. Read it again. It's in there. I didn't make it up. Do we honor our wives like we're supposed to? Do we honor the church like Jesus did and laid his life down for it? And we sit here today hailing that. But as the world looks into our life, it's the drama that plays out that shows how Christian marriage should represent the church and how it plays out in our world. And unfortunately today there's an attack on marriage, hugely. We all know that the whole thing got skewed when they took off the last way marker of who could marry who. And now they're trying to do away with marriage. There's a bill that we read on some state that I won't mention that's pushing to not have marriages. Just live together. We'll give you a tax credit if you live together, and we'll penalize you if you're married. There's an all-out onslaught. Because the other part of this book, let me just say, is warfare. Chapter 6 is all warfare, man. Gird it up, get ready, rock out there, put on your mossy oak, and we're going at it. Yeah. And you think it's sandwiched in the first part that comes out and says, this is who you are in Christ. This is how you're supposed to walk through life. This is how you're supposed to honor the guy next to you. This is how you're supposed to honor your wife. Kids, honor your mother and father. Slaves, masters, you're supposed to, you honor the master. The structure is to be a witness. And then he says at the end, oh, by the way, the war is coming. You're in it. So take up your armor and fight. That's where we sit right now. Do we go that far? Do we take the part of, yeah, I'm saved, but then we don't let any of these other parts move out? Instead, we just say, yeah, I'm good. But instead it's a battle to push for that, to fight for that, to be that example, to say you're sorry to your wife, to say you're sorry to your husband, to say you're sorry to your kid because you lost your temper. That's the kingdom in its finest. That's the weaponry that you've darned on and you've stepped into the battle and you say, you know what? I'm sorry I lost my temper. I was wrong. I've met kids that their parents have never said they're sorry to. And it's not a good example. I had a good example. My dad said he was sorry. Showed me the love of Jesus. My mother was very embracing. We've tried to do it with our kids. We've made mistakes, of course, as everybody does. But it's the part of the example of saying, I'm sorry. You know, it's really interesting is in our world today, obviously, if I could have said I was sorry to the dagger man, I would have said so, but we were out the door too quickly. Otherwise, I would have held somebody up, and they would have gotten mad if I was talking to that guy. Good excuse. People in the world, you come up to them and you do something that's offensive, you say, oh, man, I'm so sorry. They kind of look at you. What? I'm sorry that was the last cart and I took it right out of your hand. Sorry. You know what I mean? They don't know how to process it. And I truly believe in my heart that there is something warfare-ish that takes place when we choose to humble ourselves and say, I'm sorry. Because the world is not that way. The enemy wants to tip it up, cause tension, and cause rift. And that's what the whole book of Ephesians is about, is relationship. And it's knowing who we are in Jesus, which empowers us. You know, if you were to go hiking or to do some big craft and you train for it, you're ready for it. I think of the fire guys, you're ready for whatever situation you walk into because you're trained for it. There's a confidence. We have to be that way in the world as we step out, in our homes. You know what? If you blow it, just say you're sorry. It's the easiest thing because I think one of the most unrecognized gifts in the church is repentance. But nobody likes to do it because you humble yourself. We're proud. We're entitled. You know, I was talking to somebody in YWAM one time. She goes, Barkema, you're freezing. And I said, I'm what? She goes, you're freezing. Proud, stubborn people. That's what you're known for. And I was like, wow, okay. Walked out of there thinking, isn't that interesting? Never knew that, but she was Dutch. We're not to be a proud, stubborn person as a kingdom person. We're supposed to be a humble person. And I think the challenge is submitting to somebody we think we're weak. So moving forward to wrap here, there's three things we have to have, especially in the marital relationship, but you can take this and shift it just a little bit as far as commitment. We need to be committed to the Lord first and foremost. We need to be committed to say to Jesus, I will do all things for you. I will take up my cross for you. I will fail. But because of your mercy and your grace, I will be successful because you've already chosen me. You've already destined me. You've already given me an inheritance. I will be successful. So we choose to commit. And commitment is more than just wanting to stay together within a relationship. It's the act of choosing your partner for life and promising to go through all its ups and downs together. And while there may be plenty of fish in the sea, being married means you're wholeheartedly invested in making the relationship last, casting away any doubts that this is just a temporary experiment. Divorce, I hate to tell you this, is huge in the Christian world and the non-Christian world. And I still believe Scripture says, till death do us part. Now, granted, there's some things within there that I can't say are acceptable, that I can't say within your world of what happened or what didn't happen that happens. But divorce is a failed relationship. It's not the unpardonable sin. Now, you probably think that guy's a lunatic. On one thing, he just said over here it's not, and over here he said, well, there is issues. No, I'm not a lunatic. I am still confused inside my own mind, but we all live there together. Have you ever been in those rooms where you're never alone by yourself because you're still there because you talk to yourself? I live there, and it's really a neat place. So anyway, within that whole realm, it was called to be till death do us part. It was called to be to that place. Now, circumstantially within our life, we're not going to get into that. We're just going to look at that's what it's for. That's what it's for, to where we step in for better or for worse. It's not for the greatest and then I'm out. It's for the greatest. And so as Andy and I have journeyed through as youth pastors, we've married a lot of kids that have grown up. One thing it does is it gives you a real sense of pride that they've stepped into that place, they've honored Jesus, they've found a mate, and they're stepping into honor again and be that played out drama in the world of what it looks like to be in a church. What it also says to us is we're getting old. Because they used to be this big and now they're standing in front of you getting married. And then it's like, whoa. And then they have you dedicate their kid. It's like, whoa, man. And it's an awesome privilege. It's a cool experience. So love is the second thing. While most couples start out in their relationships being in love, sustaining and feeling for each other takes effort. And we're majoring on marriage here because we're out of Ephesians 5:22, which is the dynamic of which the world looks at, which is so distorted right now. But we can redeem it. While most couples start out in their relationships being in love, sustaining that feeling for each other takes effort, sacrifice, and generosity. True love means putting your partner first and giving yourself without expecting anything in return. It also helps you to accept each other for who you are, flaws and all, and forgive each other for when you fall short. We're committed to love. John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he sent Jesus. So do we so love our spouse? Do we so love our kids? I've met so many people that have disowned their kids because they've gone in a different direction. That's not God's love. That's not parental love. Just know it if you're a parent till you die. That's just the way it is, and it's a privilege. It's a joy to be a parent. So if you're not a parent yet, get ready and get saddled up because it's a blast. It's got some ups and downs, some valleys, and some peaks, but it's a real ride, and then grandkids come in, and it only gets better. So love, we're committed to love. The last is respect. Expressing love, no matter how heartfelt, doesn't mean much if marriage partners don't respect each other. Respecting your partner for their qualities, thoughts, and capabilities means that you not only accept, but also admire the differences. Respect can also help you listen to each other's opinions and overcome challenges and disagreements. So respect. Respect is a thing of which ultimately, when you get disrespected, you feel it, and you take it personally. You can either rise up with anger or you step back in defeat and you're wounded. So when we respect one another, and I don't know, some of you have gone through, I forget the name of the book, but anyway, Emerson Eggerichs wrote the book, Love and Respect. Gee, isn't that interesting? So he talks about this thing called the crazy cycle. And men need to feel respected and women need to feel loved. But when the woman doesn't respect the man is incapable of loving the woman. So therefore, it's called the crazy cycle. So if you can respect your husband, because the ladies are called to respect your husband regardless of how he acts, except for the fact he's supposed to be submitting as unto the Lord, which is dead. And then we're supposed to love our wives as Christ loved the church. And the women, have you ever thought about how physiologically God wired men and women? It's kind of an amazing thing because men are not so emotional. Now, some of us are, mentioning no names. I can look around the room and see where the tear men are that are really in touch with their feelings. That's a good thing. I cry sometimes, but not in public or anywhere else, just with my family. It's a personal thing, and it's movies. Some movies just move me to tears. I don't understand it. And I'm not talking about The Notebook. I had to throw that out there. So coming back to the whole part of respect, we all want to be respected. And unfortunately, our society has taken respect and dragged it through the dirt. So what happens is places that automatically respect, I think police officers, teachers, political places, any of those things automatically command an office of respect. When I was growing up, a pastor or a reverend was a place of respect. And now it's no more. Police are no longer respected. Teachers are no longer respected. Places of authority like governmental offices are no longer respected. Now, that filters down into our life, but it doesn't give us a pass because we're called here to respect. The wife is to respect. We're to humble each other and be submitted, and we're to respect one another. Can we do it? We're called to do it. So commitment, love, and respect is what makes the marriage flourish. And if I respect my wife, she's able to do what she needs to do. She's able to tell me what I'm not doing right. And I'm able to receive that because we have a mutual respect relationship. But when respect's gone, we've all worked for a boss that had a big thumb and you've got a mark on the back of your neck. It's really difficult to respect that boss, but you're still called to respect it, no matter what. But nobody loves it, right? So if we can live in this relationship where we take on the part of what God said, and we love each other, we respect each other, and we submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. All right. I banged on that for a while. So if you walk away with three things, love, respect, and commitment today, and that you're called to be something to this world. You're called to be a light. You're called to be an example of how we treat one another. We're called to let the guy next to you go in front of you on the way out when you're late. Now, granted, there's balance within this whole thing, and you guys know that, and you know what my heart is here. It's to be a witness in this world, we've got to learn to love each other that we call believers, that we all hail the name of Jesus, but I can't stand that guy right there. I wasn't pointing you at him. You know what I'm saying? Everybody loves Adam. It's one of those things where it's a challenge for our own flesh to deny it and to step in and say, how can I help? How can I be there? Yes, I understand that. And Jesus showed us the model. So if we can't live within that aspect of it, we have a real problem. So, a lot of times what happens with guys is people get up here and we ramble. Just keep on going. But you know what? I'm the kind of guy that likes to get off the train. So would you stand with me? And I want to pray a part of this scripture over you today. I want you to remember in your mind that commitment, love, and respect is what we need, not only in the marital relationship, but also in the body of Christ relationship. And to be able to respectfully and humbly submit to one another with love, with open arms, and to lock arms and be able to move forward. So as you see that person across the way that's of a different denomination than you are, reach out and say, hey man, how can I help you? Whatever, I want to be there. And maybe it's nothing but a nice smile and maybe a locked arm at some point in some juncture within our life. So would you close your eyes with me and position yourself mentally, because I'm going to pray this over you. It's Ephesians 3:14. For this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and earth takes its name. I pray that, according to the riches of his glory, he may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through the Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, as you are being rooted and grounded in love. I pray that you may have the power to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, so that you may be filled with the fullness of God. So that you may be filled with the fullness of God. Now to him who by the power of the work within us is able to accomplish abundantly far more than we can ask or imagine, to him be the glory in the church and in Jesus Christ to all generations forever and ever. Amen. So you've been empowered, you've been charged, now you head out into the world and let your light shine. If you're married, give your husband or wife a big hug. I'm a PDA guy. Give them a big kiss and just say, yes, we are a light and we're a drama playing out in this world. Go in peace. Have a great day. And remember, you impact everybody that's around you. God bless you. Have a good week.